Fletch Topper, Billy R Sports, J Strats 95 are the 95 are the Twitter handles, as is WKU Redzone at WKU Redzone on Twitter. Throughout the show, if you have a question, a comment, you want to hear us stop talking, let us know. Send us a tweet, and who knows, your question might be read aloud here on air at the Redzone. And Billy mentioned it a little while ago, so we're going to get to it. A lot has happened since our last show last week, and before we dive too deep, we know that if you listen to the Red Zone a lot, you know that we love to have fun here. We love to be silly, get off topic, go on tangents. But we're going to put on our serious hats here for a minute with the story of the WKU Swim and Dive team as we dive into this story right here. So yesterday, news broke that the swim and dive team for WKU, both men's and women's, cut for 5 years following the investigation after Colin Craig filed a complaint with the Bowling Green Police Department about being hazed this past January 4th. Bruce Marchana, Brian Thomas, and Chelsea Ale will be eliminated with their positions on June 30th, and a lot has come just in the past 24 hours, a little bit over 24 hours, I guess approaching 48 hours after this story broke, and just reactions from all sides here, and really a shame. One of the better, if not the best program here on the Hill since Marchanda has been with the team, and something you don't ever want to see happen anywhere, but it happened here in WKU. The team was found under multiple violations by both the Bowling Green Police Department and the WKU Title IX office. Hazing, drug paraphernalia, and sexual assault are the charges, and kind of the reasoning and the reasoning why the team was cut. And so I open it up to you guys. What was your reaction when you heard this, and what have you guys thought about since it's happened? Have you guys learned anything? Is it still sting? Like what has been the process for you guys who cover the team and who follow WKU sports closely?
Well, to be honest, it was a bit of a shock that it was for 5 years effective immediately. It just seems like a very harsh punishment right off the bat. But you look into some of these allegations that were told by Colin Craig, and they were pretty serious. And I think Gary Ransdell and Todd Stewart didn't have any nonsense with this. This was a thing that was going to define their terms as president and athletic director, and they took strong action. And one thing that's really a shame is that, Fletcher, you were right on the money when they said this is one of the best programs in Western Kentucky. I mean, this men's team is the Conference USA champions in their first year, and they've won, over the last 4 years, they've won the conference championship 3 times. Mm-hmm. For the women, they've had 4 top 3 finishes in the past 4 years. So it's a real shame that these athletes, not just athletes, but great athletes that are bringing a lot of publicity to Western Kentucky, are now viewed in this negative light as much.
The swim team has been consistently one of the best programs on campus, and it's really, I was very disappointed to hear when this news broke, and I was a little bit taken aback at the 5 years, but as I've thought about it more now, you're right, Billy. They're taking a very harsh stance on this. They're making sure that you know that they're not dealing with any nonsense, and they're not going to put up with anything. They're trying to clean house, get the coaches out of there, and make sure that if the WKU swim team does come back after 5 years, that it's going to be a completely new system, completely new swimmers. And it's just a little bit upsetting for all of the swimmers now that weren't involved in these actual allegations, that weren't dealing with this. Actually, Bill Powell was having an interview with WBKO a little bit earlier on, and he said that he got numerous calls from former swimmers after this news broke, basically saying there were times when I was pushed to drink, but I just said no, and I got over it really quick. Nobody actually forced me. So they were very surprised and shocked, and I think everybody was when these allegations did come down.
Jimmy, you mentioned former swimmers, and here at the Red Zone retweeted a tweet by Claire Donahue, obviously the past WKU swimmer, the Olympic swimmer, very big strides for the WKU swim program, kind of seen as the, kind of shining moment swimmer.
Almost a poster.
Right, poster child. And she tweeted got off the airplane and heard the news. I am so upset for my team. My heart goes out to these 50 kids. Family no matter what. Hashtag WKU swim. So really just kind of the reaction from all the alums from WKU swimming. But one thing that is holding true by Gary Ransdell and Todd Stewart is they are honoring the scholarships. The people that I know Bill Powell talked about, people not being, or the people that were punished that had nothing to do with it, but they are still honoring scholarships until senior year as long as the kids can stay in good academic
And they're
standing.
also allowing some swimmers to transfer right off the bat. So if they want to continue their swimming careers, they're allowing them to transfer
Which is
now.
the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. And I'm glad that they're honoring the scholarships too. So that's kind of like almost like a makeup for we're blaming we're taking this out on everybody, but we're going to give you a little bit something back if you were not involved.
And like you were talking about with Bill Powell there, Jimmy, the big thing is why not just punish those 3, 4, 5, the 5 or 10% of the team that was taking part in doing the illegal activities, and allow the rest of the team, which from everything that we've heard, now this could be making up for or putting a cover on for the team. It could all be out the you know what, but it seems pretty consistent that it's only a handful of kids, only a couple of what's the old saying? A couple of rotten apples can spoil the bunch. It's only a couple of kids, so why force the rest of the 40 kids who aren't doing this and punish them in the same way?
The main reason I've heard, just kind of a general consensus, is that there was a culture. It was the players. It was a small amount of players that did this, but it was this culture that these players created that was the big reason why that this is such a serious news story, that why they're suspended for 5 years. If it was just a very, very small amount and it would have been caught, I don't know how they would have handled it differently, but this, by the report, it was a culture in that everybody, even though you weren't, partaking in these horrible acts, but it was that the culture of the swim team was all based around this.
And it was actually Gary Ransdell, I think, who said, actually I have a quote from him, the pervasive culture of misconduct in the swimming and diving program is intolerable. So it makes you wonder if this has been going on for a long time. If the report found that this has been going on for numerous years, it's not something that's just been started up.
Now, as a student here, I'm in Greek life. I'm a member of Sigma Phi Epsilon, and so I know usually where, Friday nights, Saturday nights, a lot of people are going in the Greek community. And one of the places that maybe not a lot of Greeks go, but a lot of people that aren't in Greek communities and a lot of people that do want to party is the swim house. That's been a very common place in student lore. And that is kind of where it's seen, where there are parties that are thrown there, and a lot of people go there on the weeknights, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the old saying goes, there's nothing that good that happens after 3 a.m. And I'm sure there was
How I
plenty
Met Your
of
Mother
stuff.
taught us that.
Right, and so I'm sure there was plenty of stuff going on past 3 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, a night where a lot of college kids came together, and that was where this is kind of revolving out of.
And that culture, that one word, culture, I think, that it was in the investigation and with President Ransdell and Todd Stewart putting it in their joint statement. I think that's one of the things that really kind of not necessarily hit home, but was one of the things that someone looking at the story was, the culture, yeah, that makes sense to put it away for a little bit and hopefully bring it back with fresh eyes. And I think culture has a lot to do with the firing of the coaches. Marshonda Thomas and Ale and our own Josh Holland was interviewing a former swimmer yesterday for a story he was doing for News Channel 12 and Extra Point, our student newscast here on campus, and he was a former diver, and he was saying that the way that we've all heard that the coaches knew about what was happening at these parties, but in the way that the interview went yesterday with the former diver, he said that Coach Ale, who was the diving coach, knew in the sense that she knew the kids were going out, she knew the kids were partying and at times maybe a little too much, and she would always say, hey, if you do go out and party and you suffer in practice the next day, your performance suffers because of it, you're going to be punished somehow. And so I think just saying that the coaches were aware kind of puts a bit of a negative light, but I don't think the coaches were as aware as the statement makes it seem. It's not like I don't believe that it's like the coaches were at the parties or the coaches were talking to the upperclassmen saying, you know that the new guys or the new swimmers and divers coming in, they have to go through whatever you did. I think they knew that in their free time they like to have fun and get together, but I don't think they knew to that extent, and it just is a shame to see these coaches have to be let go by the university.
I think they knew they were college kids, and I mean, I say that in kind of the light sense of the word, but college kids are usually kind of known for going out and a time for partying and things like that, and I think this is a huge gray area in that kind of point. I think the report is saying that they knew about it. I agree with Fletcher. I'm sure it's not Coach Bruce that was out there and doing the hazing allegations, but I'm sure they somewhat knew about the partying that was going on. And there's a very big gray area on how much they're going to step in on that and how much they're going to force the kids to not do that kind of stuff, and when not to party, what not to hang out, and what to do when they're hanging out. And it's just kind of the gray area that I guess they didn't take the right approach to, because now it's kind of backfiring on them.
But as a coach on a college team, you have to understand that, yeah, they're in college, they're going to do some stuff like this, but you have to let them be college kids. You can't force them into being something that they're not, and they're college kids, and they're going to go out, and they're going to get drunk, and they're going to do all this stuff. But it's just there comes a time in your life where you can start making your own decisions. And I think what they were expecting some of the swimmers to do is just to say no, to say, I think that my performance is going to struggle or it's going to dip down if I start doing this. And so I'm just going to stop. And that's one of the things that one of the former swimmers told Coach Powell in the interview with BKO. He said that I knew that my performance was going to slip if I started, so I just told everybody no, and that was fine. And I think that if you're a coach, you just got to kind of hope that your swimmers have that head like on their shoulders.
Something that coaches can do is also kind of reset the priorities of kind of these athletes and let them know, say, hey, do you want to go out and, have a party, have a good time with these friends, or do you want to be a WKU athlete? Do you want to represent this school? And I think that's something maybe could have been done more, the swim team. Maybe they could have, I'm not sure how much of an impact it could have had and how much they actually did, but I feel like that is a vital piece, and some of the coaches that are able to kind of dictate the better behavior from their coaches. I know Nick Saban, a coach of Alabama football, he probably stresses the importance of, getting good grades and staying out of trouble and stuff like that, so you can represent our university. And I feel like that was something that may have been missing in this.
Oddly enough, of all the things that the NCAA kind of oversees and has their hand in and says, you can't do this, you can't do that, according to a Herald piece that was written yesterday after the sanctions came down, it said that the NCAA doesn't have any anti-hazing policies in the bylaws. Quote from the Herald, the organization directs each incident to institutional policies to handle on a case-by-case basis. So that's kind of shocking, knowing how much the NCAA likes to control things that with the hazing. Now, granted, I don't think the NCAA ever thought that a team might have this fall upon them with hazing, but still, you would think something like the NCAA would have something in place for this, and WKU took matters into their own hands and tried to do it in a manner that, from what it seems, because athletics hasn't said anything outside of the statement released by Todd Stewart and Gary Ransdell, that they just want this to go away as quickly as possible.
It was very stern, and, they are punishing a lot of kids, and maybe a lot of kids that didn't have a lot to do with it, but at the same time it was there, and it was still very serious. There were still sexual harassment, and there were still...
I think that's the worst part about it,
right,
is
underage drinking.
The claims of the sexual harassment and the investigation finding the wall of just very graphic pictures and claims from a couple other former swimmers. I think that was the most deafening piece of evidence against the swim.
And you have to act on that kind of thing. You can't just let that slide.
The sexual harassment was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think if they would have found all the other stuff, the punishment would not be nearly as strict as it is when you throw on that sexual harassment too.
So lots to talk about. A couple more things to touch on with this topic of the swim team. What does the future hold? And a little what would happen if game we'll play. And then we'll talk some baseball. Hilltoppers with a big win last night, but they can't seem to string together multiple big wins in a row. All that and more coming up next right here on the Red Zone on Revolution 91.7.